I'm honestly exhausted with the constant blame game from the right. Every time a tragedy happens, their first instinct is to point fingers instead of facing the reality of gun violence in America. They don't seem to care about lives lost unless they can twist the story for political gain. It's not only frustrating, it's disturbing. And once again, that's exactly what we saw from Donald Trump today. After yet another shooting, he jumped onto Truth Social to try to spin it for his advantage. But just like so many times recently, it backfired the moment people learned more about the actual beliefs of the suspected shooter. We'll break it all down in just a moment. But before we get into the details, I want to quickly ask, if you're watching this and you appreciate our work, please hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you do, because it helps this channel grow and reach more people. Now, before we dive into Trump's post and why it backfired, I want to start with some important context from Adam Mockler, who summed up perfectly how the right exploits these tragedies. What he said is crucial to understanding everything we're about to cover.
Yeah, I'm pretty tired of conservatives gaslighting about the current political environment and Donald Trump's rhetoric when all of this escalation can be traced back to his entrance into American politics. His claim to fame was saying that Obama wasn't born in America. He was the first presidential candidate to have his crowd chant, "Lock her up," about a political opponent. You can bring up the insurrection. Even in the past few weeks, my home city of Chicago, he posted a photo of Chicago being invaded by the Department of War. So the broader point here is Donald Trump endlessly deflects and tries to blame it on the other side when he is the one responsible for amping up the tension in America. And I've spent all of my formative years throughout high school, throughout college, looking to the president, who I'm supposed to be able to look up to, and seeing somebody who's trying to place blame on the left, who's amping up the rhetoric constantly. And yeah, it's not good.
So you think it's Donald Trump's fault that a deranged leftist climbed up to the top of a building and shot up the ICE facility, not once now, but twice in Texas?
I think it's Donald Trump's fault that America has gotten to this heated place. I think that
no responsibility for the radicalization on the left that's causing this violent outburst.
That 29-year-old is radicalized by online communities and online algorithms. I'm not going to blame that directly on Trump, but he was caught in a lot of online video game algorithms and all these communities. Donald Trump,
but it's Trump's
10
fault.
years ago, Donald Trump amped up the tension in America.
So he ran 10 years ago, and this guy then 10 years later, somehow you're connecting. Can't you just take responsibility for it?
Oh,
on the left.
But let's not do the he has to take responsibility because he's a Democrat.
I'm a 22-year-old YouTuber. You want me to take more responsibility than the president of the United States?
I want you to understand.
I'm a 22-year-old YouTuber.
I want you to understand that we are in the middle of an epidemic of left-wing violence. They're attacking ICE. They shot Charlie. It's happening all over the country. We have these Free Palestine people running around trying to burn down the Pennsylvania governor's mansion. On and on.
Then
and
maybe
on.
the president.
It's not Trump's fault.
The president of the United
left
States
is radicalized to the point of saying we're done talking and we're going to start shooting.
Is Trump amping down the tensions?
Amping down the tensions?
Yeah, is he taking the tensions down? Is he trying to do that?
I think he's mad that his friend got murdered. If you want that.
The job of the president is to.
Adam perfectly nailed it. And I think it is so important that he just underscored the fact I'm 22 years old, and Adam and I not only are the same age, but actually have the same birthday, which is coming up. So I'm going to have to wish him a happy birthday soon. But it's just this perfect encapsulation of how the right views our politics, where Donald Trump is this little baby who can do no wrong and he has to be coddled, and you have to take him, you can't take him seriously. You can't take him literally. You know? He's not really saying anything, but he actually is. But we should go along with whatever. It's just like the right wants to create and manufacture a world in which Donald Trump exists with no guilt and their actions have no consequences. They want to play powerless at the same time as they anoint their king, their want to be dictator and actual authoritarian. It is such they pretend they cannot change things to make our lives better, because they don't actually want to. It's why we see this epidemic of gun violence persist. And it's why we saw another shooting today, of which Donald Trump's response is instantly backfiring. At least 2 dead and 8 others wounded after shooting and fire at Michigan church. What we know, at least 2 people were killed and 8 others were wounded in a shooting at the Church of Jesus Christ of the Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc Township, Michigan. According to police, authorities say a gunman rammed a vehicle through the front of the church during a large service, began shooting, and then intentionally set a fire that grew into a large blaze. Police believe they may find additional victims when it is safe to enter the building. Officers exchanged fire with the gunman and killed him. According to police, he was identified as a 40-year-old Michigan man. Trump, upon learning about the shooting, took to Truth Social and posted, "I've been briefed of the horrendous shooting that took place at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Grand Blanc, Michigan. The FBI was immediately on the scene and will be leading the federal investigation and providing full support to state and local officials. The suspect is dead, but there is still a lot to learn. This appears to be yet another targeted attack on Christians in the United States of America. The Trump administration will keep the public posted as we always do. In the meantime, pray for the victims and their families. This epidemic of violence in our country must end immediately." Well, clearly, Trump doesn't actually care about the epidemic of gun violence ending. Donald Trump won't do anything to address it. He'll keep taking bucks from the NRA. The right refuses to take actual action because they just want to use this as an opportunity to further their political agenda. Because Donald Trump put out a list of 7 different buckets that you could fall into that he claims to be anti-American. If you are anti-capitalist, you can be prosecuted. If you are anti-Christian, they can go after you. If you are anti-Trump, essentially in their view of anti-American, Pam Bandy says you are a threat to the United States. This is about furthering the agenda when the truth really behind the shooter's beliefs, this alleged assailant beliefs as we know it, are coming out right now. And it doesn't really align with Donald Trump's view of the world. On Thomas Jacob Sanford's property, the man who is the alleged assailant who was killed today as of June 2025 per Google Maps, the Michigan LDS shooter. Note, if we don't do this kind of research, Trump and his disinformation machine will make this guy into a left-wing trans immigrant. As you can see there is a Trump sign. Call to Activism wrote, "Major breaking. The suspected Michigan shooter has been identified as Iraq War veteran Thomas Sanford. Sanford was a U.S. Marine who served in Iraq from 2004 to 2008. He was white. He's not trans. He died at the scene." Once again, we see an image of people saying that the Michigan church shooter Thomas Jacob Sanford had a Trump sign on his property. As you can see there above the stop sign, that is a Donald Trump sign. I need to be very clear here, because the way shootings are politicized in this country has me absolutely furious. The right is once again using tragedy to attack already marginalized communities, in this case, trying to strip away the humanity of transgender people. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying Donald Trump is directly responsible for today's events. What I am saying is that Trump has played a massive role in escalating tensions in this country. He's encouraged political violence. He's mocked victims of violence. And he's normalized a culture where violence feels like an acceptable response. That context matters. It is deeply dishonest for the right to instantly jump into their blame game while refusing to acknowledge the role Trump has played in fueling a broader rise in political violence. My goal isn't to score a political victory. I don't want that. The only victory I want is to end gun violence in America. But while the right spreads misinformation, it becomes our responsibility to push back with facts. Here are the facts. This suspect was not trans, was not an immigrant, and was not a person of color. He was a white man who openly displayed his support for Donald Trump with a sign in his yard. Yet instead of addressing this reality, the right is already trying to shift blame onto groups Trump has labeled as enemies of his worldview. We cannot let that narrative stand. If Trump truly wants to address the violence plaguing America, maybe it's time for him to have a real moment of reflection and acknowledge his own role in creating this environment. Until then, I will continue to push back and refuse to let these tragedies be twisted into excuses to target marginalized people. And I'm not the only one. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett has also made it clear she won't let that happen either.
The president has decided that he wants to shake down people as relates to the First Amendment because he has filed not one lawsuit, not two lawsuits, but he has filed numerous lawsuits. He filed a lawsuit against the New York Times. He filed one against the Wall Street Journal, against CBS, against ABC, against the Des Moines Register. He is doing all of this because he wants to quash any speech that is not appreciative or lauding him, which is pretty much anything that's factual. So let's talk a few facts about these January 6 felons that should still be incarcerated because they went through the process, but because they were doing things on his behalf, of course, he wanted to let them go. So they released more than 1,000 people who participated in the insurrection on this government, many of whom who had previous criminal records, like Mr. Theodore Mendenforth, who was convicted of predatory criminal sexual assault of a child, or Mr. Peter Schwartz, who had 38 prior convictions, including one where he beat his wife by repeatedly punching and biting her. Trump also pardoned Mr. David Daniel, who was convicted of production and possession of child pornography. Trump also pardoned Mr. Daniel Ball, who, quote, threw an explosive device that detonated upon at least 25 officers during the Capitol riot. He also had a record for, quote, domestic violence by strangulation. I'm not done. Trump also pardoned Mr. Andrew Taki, who sent nudes to an undercover law enforcement officer who was posing as a 15-year-old girl. Mr. Casey Hopkins also received a pardon from Trump, and Mr. Hopkins was convicted of forcible rape. According to court records, he, quote, had forcible intercourse with the victim, choked her to the point of impairing her vision, banged her head into a wall, and urinated into the victim's mouth as he humiliated her. These are the people that he decided to release in the streets of D.C. So if anybody does need to clean up D.C., I would agree it is this man, because he is the one that is causing half the crime that we have. Not only is he participating in the crime, but we know that he instigated the insurrection. And if I did say that I had one issue with the Biden-Harris administration, it is the fact that they did not move forward and make sure that this man was put where he should have been put. Because the last time I checked as a criminal defense attorney, and Mr. Attorney General, you may have a different experience, but I never had a defendant that had 34 convictions for felonies and did not spend one day in jail. Never in my life. And the last time I checked, the party of law and order is the only one that decided that they would be out of order and decided to nominate someone who was not only indicted but was actually convicted of multiple felonies. That has never happened in this country, and it is a shame that we are dealing with it now, and now he wants to tell y'all how to do your jobs.
Okay.
Donald Trump's real goal has never been about ending violence. It has always been about silencing opposition. He wants to suppress anyone who dares to speak out against him, and that's exactly why we must continue raising our voices. That's what I'm going to keep doing on this show. If you'd like to support this work, you can hit the subscribe button, leave a like on this video, and if you made it all the way to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments, and until next time, I will see you soon.